Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us to the Personal Excellence Foundation podcast today. We have as our guest, Julie Burke, who is a therapist with Violet Crown Therapy. And I'm so excited to talk to her about the trends that she's seeing in kids' health and well-being, and some of the things that we think together can be helpful for you as you guys are coming out of the pandemic and looking to what's next in this next school year. So Julie, as we get started, just introduce yourself. We'd love to hear about you. Tell us about you.
Thank you. Like you said, I am a therapist with Violet Crown Therapy. I opened up my own practice in August, and I spend a lot of my time working with tweens and teens and their parents, and just kind of really helping them just figure out who they are and their place in the world. No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure at all. Gosh, we talk about that so much, and one of the words that always comes up for us is purpose, and how important purpose is. And it doesn't have to be some big crazy thing, but everyone having a purpose is so important. So before we dig into things about your work, do you have a way to articulate your purpose in one sentence? Is that a challenge that you can meet?
Yeah, I think my purpose is really to help people cultivate relationships with authenticity and vulnerability. So whether that's with themselves or others, I really think just relationships and authenticity and vulnerability. So any sentence with those three words, I think that's really my purpose.
Yeah. I saw on your website, one of the quotes that really resonated with me was when you said, "Be you, the world needs it." I think that was a quote that I thought, I was like, oh yes, authentic self is such an important thing for young people, as it is for all of us. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that. Like, how powerful is it for particularly like a 10 to 13-year-old to come to this kind of understanding of having their identity, meaning, and purpose at a young age? Have you seen that be a game changer, I guess? What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that's huge if and when, 10 to 13-year-olds are able to get that. I think, with guidance and support, and a lot of times just permission of, let's be curious about what you like and what you don't like and why. And if people are able to get that understanding, it just sets the stage for so many things of, okay, if I have an idea of who I am, then it's gonna, impact the friends I make, how I interact with my teachers, how I ask for help, all of these things.
Yeah. I've been reading a new book by Bruce Perry. Have you heard of him?
I have.
I knew you would hear of him. I just came to his book because he was a part of the keynote for South by Southwest EDU with Oprah Winfrey. And they were talking a lot about, along the lines of what we are discussing here, identity, meaning, and purpose, but more so in the lens of resilience, and how, especially if you go through trauma at this age, at a younger age, how that impacts the biological response of your body, not just your emotional response. And so we all have then within ourselves the capacity to strengthen that resilience muscle. And I just found it so fascinating. And so the reason I bring that up is because we're seeing that as one of the main challenges, particularly through COVID, that young people are facing, trying to build that resilience muscle. And so beyond that, I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the big challenges that you see or trends that you're seeing in young people's health and well-being?
What trends am I seeing on top of just needing to build resilience?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I think there's so much pressure to fit in. And I think with trends that are coming out on TikTok and Instagram, I don't know if kids use Twitter. I don't think they use Twitter. I think it's really TikTok, but just on these social media trends, whether it's I need to dance a certain way or dress a certain way, or is this makeup brand cool or not? And just kind of like navigating that, which of course goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. finding their identity and all of that. So that's a huge thing that comes to mind. And I think another part, like a big thing that I see is kids, tweens aren't really sure how to ask for help in whatever capacity that looks like. So I think a lot of it is learning what self-advocacy is and what that looks like, and just kind of leaning into it's okay to do this. You don't have to have it all figured out, especially at 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of our research has shown that second decade of life, as they embark into the second decade of life, is this journey for,
Mhm.
really looking to, where do I fit into the world, and where do I stick out, and getting comfortable with that. And to your point, asking for help. And so when we think about, as kids get into the second decade of life, there's all kinds of things that they're being bombarded with societally and culturally. What are some things that you're seeing that maybe concern you, that we're maybe not doing as a society a good enough job of supporting kids? And what are some things that are concerning you as you hear from your patients?
Oh gosh, honestly, the first thing that comes to mind with that is vaping. Vaping, I
Mm,
feel like, has become more and more, I don't even know if I want to say like popular or trendy, or it's something, I feel like people are getting younger and younger and younger with having opportunities to do that. And it's such a hard place for parents and for me working with tweens and teens to say like, hey, that's actually not a cool thing to do, without
yeah,
shaming them. So it's like, how do you support someone in making healthy decisions for themselves and their bodies and their well-being without shaming them? And it's I feel like it's a really delicate walk to take.
yeah. Wow, vaping. That is not what I expected you to say. So I'm really curious about, how they're getting a hold of those kinds of things. And are any trends in technology? You mentioned social media, but talk to me about how you're approaching maybe screen time. Is that something that comes up in your conversations at all?
Oh my gosh, yes, it comes up all the time where, whether I'm thinking of, some people I work with right now that they struggle sleeping. Oh, I can't fall asleep. And it's like, okay, well, how much are you on your phone right before bed? What
Mhm.
are healthy habits that you can create? And like, what is screen time doing right before bed? Also, what social media accounts are you following? What messages are you getting, whether they're direct or indirect, about how you should look or what's cool and what's not? And really just kind of exploring that. And I think it's so important to do with a lens of curiosity. I cannot tell you how many times I tell clients, I'm not asking because I'm judging you. I'm asking because I really just want to know. I'm so
Yeah.
curious right now. And yeah, so I think screen time is a huge one. And especially with everything that people are just internalizing.
Yeah. Yeah. As we look at schools coming back to this in person now, we've been through this whole time where you couldn't avoid screen time,
Right.
because kids were having to be um, virtually learning. What are some of the things that you're talking to your clients about, is that a concern? First and foremost, is that a concern as they get back into the school year, of normalizing being and socializing? Have people missed that opportunity of being in person, as far as you can tell? And what would you advise them as they start to open up?
Absolutely. I think people have missed it a lot. And then it creates this weird, I don't know, this weird like crossroads, because people, are, gosh, I've missed my teachers, I've missed my friends, but whenever they're getting ready for it, it's just, feeling super anxious. What is this going to look like? Am I
Mhm.
going to be able to sit with people? And so it's definitely this intersection of excitement and anxiety, understandably so. And so I just, I'll tell people, just sit with it. It's okay.
Mm.
And also, I think something that people need to be just mindful of is sensory overload. People have been in, their houses, in school for so long, and then all of a sudden, wow, now I'm surrounded by people. I'm surrounded, I may not have my dog that gives me comfort. I don't have the opportunity during PE to go outside and play anymore. How, what does this look like? And so just really giving space to, remind them, you're probably going to feel overloaded. what can you do to kind of regulate when that happens? And you're probably going to be really tired when you come home. Giving yourself
Yeah.
space, get extra sleep. It's okay if you're a little bit grumpy. What can you do to take care of yourself if you're feeling those things?
Yeah. So that's such great advice for young people to, just sit with it. It's okay to just sit with it. I love that. And so would you say the same to parents, or is there advice that you would give to parents that might differ from what you think teens should do as they go through this?
Totally. I think with parents, and it's so funny because I think parents are probably feeling some of the same, I'm so excited they're going back, but also a little nervous, and just giving themselves space to say, it's okay if you want your kid to go back to school. It's okay to want and need a break. But then for them also know, like, what can you do to check in with them? How can we not overload them, and give them space when they come home. If they're a little crabby, don't pick a fight. Take a
Yeah.
step back and recognize they've just re-entered into a world after over 12 months of just being at home, and for a lot of people just feeling so cooped up.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like remembering who you were, maybe, or reconnecting with who you were in some sense. I
Totally.
know I've had that own experience myself. The other day, I got dressed for something and went out of the house for what felt like a very long time. And I looked at myself and I'm like, do I wear these clothes? I don't even think I wear these clothes
Right.
anymore. So there is kind of that weird phenomenon of like, who are we now? What are we
Mm-hmm.
now? And it certainly extends itself to young people, and maybe is even exacerbated because they're already going through that search and trying to sift through those big questions.
Absolutely. And something also, you talking about that made me think, like, I've had so many people that I work with connect with people and different friends online, through different video games. And so then it's like, oh, well, how do I make space for my friends in person, but still maintain
Mm,
these other relationships that are so important and meaningful? And so
wow.
that's also another thing of, okay, who am I in all of these spaces?
Yeah. Wow. That is absolutely something that I would not have thought about. Of like, now you've got this kind of alternate reality that you've created
Hmm.
too, the online world of your life. Julie, we've talked about some of the trends around what's cool, and vaping seems to be cool. Um, is there anything that would be surprising or that would be considered like an alternative cool? Like, what are tweens really into that is maybe unexpected these days?
Um, Something I feel like I've seen a big trend with, tweens being really into anime. I think anime has, I think it's always been around, but I feel like it's really just kind of blown up. And I think that's kind of a cool thing for tweens to explore, because there's so many different animes and there's so many different characters. And I think that can also be a place where, people see themselves in characters. Oh, I can relate to these struggles. I can see this. And I think that can also create like such a beautiful community for people.
Anime, that's awesome. I mean, I would love to then just do a shameless plug for our Lucero series. If you haven't seen it and checked it out, you can find it on our YouTube channel. But Lucero is kind of this modern day Jiminy Cricket, and he helps our friends Mateo and Vivian, who are two 12-year-olds, go through different adventures and challenges in life. So I love that kids like alternative cool is anime right now, because definitely I think parents and others who are listening would find a lot of value in that series. But
Oh,
cool. Anything else
absolutely.
that is coming up as alternative cool?
Um, I feel like Harry Potter is still cool, which I love. I love that Harry Potter is still, trending, and Pokemon, that's a huge thing. I'm trying to think of other Roblox. Trying to, like, now of all the different video games that I hear about and that I'm
Yeah.
part of in different ways.
Uh, Every person, and especially young people, I think during this time they're just primed to have more impressionable experiences from 10 to 13, because you're just kind of a sponge at this state. Our research is saying that's, it's only second to the first 3 years of life, and I don't know if you would agree with that, but when you
Hmm.
think about those kinds of experiences, and the impressions that young people are making right now, what is something that you think, if I'm 10, like, what is advice that you would give me to say, this is something that can help you really get on the road to prepare for a healthy future? Is there anything in terms of well-being or behaviors or habits or things that you would say, that actually is something that you can do now that would be really helpful for the future?
Oh, that's such a good question.
It's a hard
Um,
question too.
it is a hard question, and it's the first thing that comes to mind. So I have a niece who will be 9 on Friday, so just shy of this age. But even, in her current, or her 8-year-old, self, I always tell her, just feel your feelings. There's been times where she's so upset about school, or, not being able to go see her friends. And I just tell her, like, it's okay to be frustrated. I see that you're so excited, and just kind of, sometimes it's just naming that, and just, giving people permission to have emotional experiences,
Yeah.
because I feel like the more they're aware of these experiences and they can name it, the better they can, in the future, I'm feeling upset. This is why, as opposed to, I'm just out of whack and I can't quite pinpoint it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or burying it or glossing
Oh
over it.
yeah. Yes. I'm fine. Everything's fine. What are you talking about?
Yeah. 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 I guess would want to ask the same sort of question, and how parents can then help support their kids. And if kids are feeling their feelings, how do you as a parent navigate your kids feeling their feelings?
Oh my gosh, yes. I think, well, a couple of things come to mind. One, and it's so much easier said than done, especially for this age. I think learning how to feel your feelings, sometimes it can come out in really extreme ways. And so just, encouraging parents to say, I see that you're feeling really frustrated. I'm gonna step outside and I'm gonna come back in a few minutes, and we can see if we can talk then. And also them, parents using that as a resource for themselves, even telling their kids, you know what, I'm just a little too upset to talk. I'll be right back. And
Yeah.
so you're doing a couple of things. One, normalizing feelings, normalizing a wide range of feelings, and also showing it's like how to self-regulate. I can't have this conversation right now, so I'm going to do what I need to do to calm down before I come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's like I said, easier said than done, but
Sure.
helpful to do for sure.
It sounds like in some way that you're also saying that learning a responsibility to call out when there are moments for self-regulation from the young person's perspective, and that parents, when they see
Totally.
that, they don't invalidate it or move it aside. Am I calling that right?
Totally. Yes, you are pinpointing it. I am. Dan Siegel has some great videos online. He calls it flipping your lid, of just people's emotional, I don't know, just emotional responses and reactions. And he explains it in such an easy to understand way of, when someone is in a high emotional state, they're not going to be logically thinking. And so
Mhm.
keep that in mind. If a parent or, a tween is upset, that's not the time to sit down and have a conversation. That's not going to do anything other than just cause tension.
Yeah. 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 I love that. I mean, gosh, I feel like we've brought this up so many times, but it's obvious to us that in this time of life from 10 to 13 years old, it's critical that you have some kind of developmental relationship or supportive parent or mentor or adult
Hmm.
or someone in that role that can help you um, find that self-regulation. And so I'm just curious, you know, who are some of your biggest allies or supporters? Like, talk to me about how you found your way to where you are today. Like, did you have someone helping you in that time, or did you have an experience during that time that led you to where you are
When I was a tween, or as an adult now where I'm at?
as a tween?
So yes, I'm really lucky that my best friend and I have known each other since we were 8. And we actually just were talking about what it was like being, you know, a tween and teen this past weekend. And we were talking about the different teachers that we had. So there are certain teachers that I had in middle school, particularly, that I just admired. They, you know, seemed really cool, but then they were also people I could go talk to if I needed support. You know, it was like, okay, I know you're my theater arts teacher, but, you know, my best friend and I just got in a fight. What do I do? And
Yeah.
being able to have this, you know, trusted adult was amazing. And it was such a helpful thing to just have that.
Yeah. Yeah. We at the Personal Excellence Foundation have been building more tools and resources to help young people start these conversations, or
Mm-hmm.
have, you know, to bridge the communication gap between parents and or teachers, and just kind of allow them to open up to more inquiry. And so there's one question here on one of our cards. We make quest cards. And so this card says, tell a story about a time when you changed someone's life in a positive way. And it can be from all time. Just, you don't have to have it be from adolescence.
Oh gosh. What a powerful question to ask someone. Um, Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind for me, this is actually a conversation I just had, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. My brother, he's 4 years older than me, but my brother reached out to me and he said something that will make my therapist sister proud. I've been in therapy for about 6 weeks. And he's like, and my only regret is not doing it sooner. Thank you so much for making that push.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So
that's awesome. Awesome. Good for you.
yeah,
And good for your brother to
I
recognize,
know.
you know, that he needed something that he wasn't getting. So I guess then at large, you know, you spend probably your entire day having conversations with people, you
Totally.
know, and digging in. But for someone who's not comfortable or just starting to get into inquiry around, you know, how do I think about my identity, meaning, and purpose, or how do I help my kids with that? Um, would you recommend therapy? What are kind of the first steps? What would you say is a great path to start those conversations into mental well-being?
Totally. So obviously as a mental health professional, I'm a huge therapy advocate. So whether that's the first place someone starts or not, like I don't think that's necessarily required. But really and truly, I think things that come to mind are just, you know, supportive parents, being curious. You know, what do you like? And then how do you give your tween autonomy? What's a way to, you know, help them have power over their lives of, you know, making decisions and just kind of navigating that. But then also parents, just a reminder not to have to take all of that on. It is not their sole responsibility.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, who are other people that are mentors? Does your child want to play sports, or are they into music or art? And you know, what are mentoring things or volunteering? There's so many different avenues to, first of all, just explore different things that make them who they are, and two, also help foster relationships with other adults, or like, you know, people that can be mentors to help guide that. So I think just kind of knowing, hey, like, what are your resources, what
Yeah,
feels good.
yeah. One of the things that you mentioned brought a question out in me, you know, so how important is it then for parents to know other parents, or to cultivate the relationships with their kids' teachers or their kids' coaches, or any of those things?
Oh, I think that's so important. I know parents are so busy, but I think a couple of things come to mind. One, just to have connections with other parents. You know, I think even for parents, social media, people generally just only share, you know, the picture perfect happy moments of their
Mhm.
lives. And so whenever you know, when there is tension at the home, you know, in home, it's like, oh gosh, like, you know, this family doesn't look like that. I wonder if that family has, you know, the same arguments. And so it can, you know, leave people feeling really isolated. Whereas having these connections, it normalizes, yeah, sometimes there's chaos.
Yeah,
That's okay.
yeah, yeah. I love that you're talking about bringing those relationships to the forefront. And I know from your website that you said that, everything you do is really about creating healthy, vibrant relationships. Um, is there anything that we haven't talked about today in that vein of like how to create healthy relationships, or how to to build stronger connections with your young people, that you'd want to say if there was a parent right here in front of you, if there's a secret sauce or something that you really want to say? Maybe it is that there is no secret sauce, but what would you tell somebody if they're sitting right here?
I would tell them that they're going to make mistakes. They're going to try things out that don't feel good. They're probably going to, meet friends that, and maybe in the long run, that wasn't the best person for me, or they might, and that's okay. And to, making mistakes is a normal part of life, and like letting that be okay. And, not just feeling like, oh, I only have to have success after success after success.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have placed such a high importance culturally on, like you said, this social media curated life of everything is so perfect and
Hmm.
wonderful. And have often wondered to myself, what kind of message is that sending to our kids?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's so scary to think about. Things must be perfect. Things, must look the certain way. And there's, different articles I've read about the way people pose to look, make their bodies change what they actually look like in real life, or filters that people can put on their photos. And yeah.
Yeah. Are are your clients, I guess, that are teens, and I'm careful not to have you talk about one in particular, but
Sure.
are what are some of the things that they're bringing up to you? Is body image or that idea of perfection one of them, or what are some of the other things that
Totally.
they're bringing up?
Yeah, so body image is a huge thing, and I am not thin enough, or, I am not strong enough. I don't have enough muscles, or, just kind of, body image and in identity in that way is a huge thing that's coming up. Other things that, I've explored is bullying is huge, and it's so hard. This kid was mean to me this year, and this is, how much that just it truly just crushes someone's soul. And it's like, okay, well, how do I know if this person can be my friend? Are they going to be kind to me? Are they not? In the past, I tried to make friends, and, it was just a way to make fun of me in this capacity. And which of course is so tender and really hard to just hold space for that, because you don't want to be dismissive of people's experiences while also encouraging them. Hey, not, there are good people out there, I promise
Yeah,
you. And I don't want
yeah,
to be dismissive of the horrible things that you have experienced.
yeah, yeah. Are there certain methods that you employ with kids who are being bullied versus kids who are experiencing body image? I mean, is it a lot of the same kind of conversation? Talk to me about that.
Totally. So with people that are being bullied, a lot of times we talk about, a lot of it is just a lens of empathy from my end. That
Yeah.
sounds so hard. Like, I'm so sorry you experienced that. Like, what are things that make you a good person? What are things that make you a good friend? And try and lean on that, while also being like, what was it like when these people said this to you?
Yeah.
I hope that's not true.
Yeah.
And just really work on that. And then we talk about like, what are friends that you enjoy being around? What are
Yeah.
things, and who are trusted adults that you can talk to if or when that happens?
Yeah.
And then similar with body image, you know, just navigating those conversations, a lot of it is, you know, what messages do you get about what a body, a healthy body is?
Yeah.
When did you first start having this idea? And sometimes, it's from social media. Sometimes it's actually from, doctors. Sometimes it's from, there's so many different messages, or, if you go to HEB, for example, there's so many low fat, reduced fat, no, and different things. And you see that enough, it's like, oh gosh, what am I eating? Is
Yeah.
this healthy?
Yeah. Yeah. So just always the through line though for you is approaching this with empathy and an empathetic ear and listening and being open to letting them, as you said earlier, feel their feelings.
Totally. And so much with, especially with this age, I tell them, I know this is tender. I know this is so hard to talk about. Do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to talk about it in a little bit? And just because, I want them to have that space and have that ownership of what their sessions look like to an extent. Like, obviously, if there are things like that need to be talked about, sometimes people will be like, okay, I'm done. Cool. We'll pick back up next week. I don't want to push you. I don't want to be someone who's pressing you for something that then turns into feeling unsafe.
Yeah. I think one of our staff members has said you use slime sometimes. Is that right? Or slime, or there's maybe a dog in your practice too?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I and that's another thing. I have so much slime. I have putty, and I even use it myself. I'll just, sit there, and that way, having something in my hands, it's like it's like a sensory thing to be like, okay, now suddenly it's easier to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Now it's like, rather than sitting there staring at someone having this conversation, let's play with these things, or let's color together. Let's draw together. There's so many different things to then just make it, again, like a little bit safer.
Yeah. That tactile approach can be so helpful to kind of bring you out and then bring you back to prepare you. Yeah.
Most definitely. And even circling back to where we were a little bit ago, that's something I've encouraged people as they're going back into school. What is like a little sensory thing that you can have? Do you have something you can put in your pocket? Something you can hold in your hand if you get nervous, of just kind of like, it's like a safety net.
I love this idea of having something tactile or being able to bring that to school and to just kind of, feel a little bit safer. When you think about then making a shift, like a personal shift, maybe away from needing that tactile thing or that security blanket, like, can you give us some examples of any of the types of personal shifts that you've seen in young people, if they've like had an aha moment in your office, or like they've come to a realization that like, oh, I don't have to think or feel that way. Like, what's an example or a story of an aha moment that you've seen, or a light bulb go off, if you can share that?
Totally. I'm thinking of someone who I've worked with who was just such a bright young kid, and he was very, very adamant that he wasn't smart. If I'm smart, then how come I don't know this? If I'm smart, how come I don't know that? And it's hard. Like, it's one of those things, like, I hear what you're saying, but I think you're wrong. But like, how do I tell them, like, yeah, like, you're right. At 11 years old, you don't know all of these things. You don't have to know all of these things, and kind of redefining what smart means. And that's, like, again, one of those things. What are messages you've gotten about smart? what things are you internalizing yourself, and just kind of helping them, make that shift of, wait, no, I am successful in these ways. I'm a really good drummer. Hey, this is part of being smart. This does make me smart. And just kind of like how it helped his confidence shift into just kind of owning, wait, just because I may not know all of the history that there is to know, from this year, I know these things about me. And like, drums, this can be my version of smart.
Yeah. I love that. My version of smart. I love that, because there are so many different kinds of intelligences. And I think even just as we evolve more as a culture, we're waking up to that like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You can be smart in lots of other areas and be considered smart. And doing so in a way that doesn't diminish one's importance in the world,
Well, totally. That's something I've worked actually with a lot of people who know a lot about history, which is one of the many subjects I know nothing about. And so that's been like one of those things that I'll be like, okay, I can like have partial conversations, but I'm going to ask a lot of questions, which I think does one of two things. It's actually kind of cool because one, I'm helping these young people really talk about things that make them feel good, and different things that make them feel smart, and also modeling ask questions if you don't know. It is, it's okay to ask questions.
Julie, when we were talking about the young boy who had this idea that he wasn't smart, um, it may be kind of hard for parents to hear, and even myself as a parent, it's hard to hear. But sometimes those messages inadvertently might be coming from us. And it's accidental and it's not something that we would ever do intentionally. But do you ever come across when a parent might have a blind spot with some of the messages that they're sending to their tweens and teens? And how do you deal with that?
Totally. So exactly what you just said. So many times it's completely unintentional. But I think for parents, it's so hard to hear your child say, I'm not smart. I am not good enough. And parents instantly fall into, yes, you are. You're amazing. You're so smart. You're this. And it's again completely out of love, but then that's so dismissive to what your kid is telling you. And so that's something I always tell parents, like, this is going to feel terrible, but what would it be like to just say, I hear that you don't think you're smart. What are things, like, that sounds so hard. What are things you're successful in? What do you need right now? I think that question, what do you need, a lot of times people get wide-eyed because we're not asked that very often. And so I think just kind of encouraging parents to, your job isn't necessarily to fix it in this moment. Your job is just to listen and to be supportive.
Well, that's hard. And
Oh,
it goes
yeah.
against, I think, the automatic response that many parents and many even teachers and people that care about the kids in their lives, it's automatic to go there and say, like, no, you're wrong. I want to fix this for you. And really listening to what you're saying is that we have to deeply listen and say, hey, I hear that. Oh, that's powerful
Yeah.
stuff, and something that I feel like any of us could really start to change our habits immediately. That rather than saying, oh, you think you're ugly, no, you're beautiful, we can say, oh, I hear that you think that, and talk to me about it. And that's something that feels really actionable, so I love that.
Totally. There's a wonderful Brene Brown short on empathy. And she says a lot of times, even for people, if you don't know what to say, it's better to tell someone, I just don't know what to say. And I'm so glad you told me that. Because even then you're hearing someone, as opposed to instantly the dismissive, no, you're not. You're so smart. You're so beautiful. You're so capable, which are wonderful things to hear, just not in those moments necessarily.
Yeah. And not as impactful. That you could have more of an impact if you were to just change your approach slightly.
Totally.
Yeah. How important is it for you as a therapist to model in some ways? I know you probably only get blocks of time with people, but you're a tattooed Disney princess. You're expressing yourself at any point in time. How important is modeling for you as a therapist in your own life?
I think that's so important because, and it's funny you mentioning the tattoos. When I first started practicing, I was nervous and I covered them. I wore cardigans and I wore jeans and I was like, I want to fit in. But then I didn't feel like me, and then that didn't feel good. And so when I was able to lean in, no, you know what, if someone for whatever reason doesn't want to work with me because I'm tattooed, we are just not a good fit, and that's okay. And it's funny, I haven't encountered that at all. If anything, people are like, if their kids are wary about therapy, they're like, she's tattooed, like, she's cool, she's cooler than
she's
me.
Cool.
Basically, yeah. So, and the tattooed Disney princess comment actually came from a voicemail. I had this mom call me and was like, hey, I got your number from this other therapist. This feels really weird, but she said you're basically a tattooed Disney princess. And I think my daughter would really like that. And I was like, done. Like, I would love to work with y'all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like by showing up as my authentic self, by, showing them, hey, this is me, that helps me, one, be a better therapist. And two, then we have, a more authentic relationship that's been cultivated. And then three, it's just, you have permission to be you in whatever way that, that looks like, in whatever way feels best.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, oh, it touches my heart. I love it. And wouldn't it be powerful if we could all show up as our authentic selves and allow the space for others to do that as well? I love it.
Totally.
What's kind of your big vision then for your practice? What's next for you, or what's your big thing that you see in your future as impact?
That's such a good question. I guess now it's been a while, but I opened it in, August of 2020. So it's not even yet a year old. And so I really think my vision is just to keep doing what I'm doing and look for other ways to reach out to young people and parents. Like I feel like it really is so hard to be a tween these days. Like I love working with them. I would not go back to that age and at all. and so just continuing to support people and just, really just be there to show up for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you're doing it. I can totally see that you will reach that goal and vision. It was such a joy to talk with you, Julie, and everything about this conversation, from the modeling, what it looks like, and living your authentic self, and just starting where we started with, be you, because the world needs it. The world certainly needs our young people to be themselves. And thank you for everything that you're doing to help parents and help others to get there.
Thank you. I mean, honestly, same to you and everything Personal Excellence Foundation is doing. Like, it just seems I'm so grateful to connect with other organizations that are doing things like this for young people.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was great to have you. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you have an excellent day. If you enjoyed this content, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear all about how much you enjoyed this video, and also let you know when new videos are available from the Personal Excellence Foundation. Thank you very much, my friends. Bye for now.